let's talk about the avoidance of emotional pain. Specifically, the overconsumption of absolutely anything to numb pain. I've had it, other people have had it. It's a fascinating thing, it really is. Because one of the most important things that I've learned about pain, emotional pain specifically, is to squeeze the ever-living shit out of it as to get every last drop. And I know that some people might look at that and they might think that there's something a little bit strange there, something a little bit weird there, right? But when I look at my life, when I look at other people's lives, and I see the avoidance of pain, I see a lack of development. I see a lack of integration. I see a lack of wholeness. I see a lack of a lot of things that I would argue are very necessary for life. The avoidance of pain, I don't know enough about the entire subject, but the reason that I'm making this video is because in my own life, I have utilized different things to avoid pain, to numb pain, to not be with pain, and instead to be somewhere else, right? And, it's fascinating because there was a point in my life when I was absolutely terrified of pain, right? Pain meant death in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not, totally the extreme of like a physical death, but it stopped me in my fucking tracks, and that was really challenging to deal with, right? It also doesn't help, and I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody, the world, or society, but it also doesn't help that there's this massive influence from society and from culture to always seek out the good times, the good highs, and to kind of just like veer away from emotional pain, right? You see it advertised everywhere. You see the escape, you see the avoidance, you see the numbing, right? It's actually rather encouraged, I would argue, right? Let's avoid our problems. Let's avoid the pain that comes with it, right? Instead of looking at the pain, understanding what it is, where it came from, why it's there, and then sitting with it and therefore integrating it, right? You're not really integrating it as a part of who you are, right? Because that's like saying that anger is a part of who you are. It's not. Anger is just an emotional experience, right? I would argue the most productive way to experience anger is to have an awareness that it is surfacing so that you can productively work with it, right? But to see it as who you are entirely is both unproductive and untrue because it's not who you are. That's like the equivalent of saying that emotional pain is who you are, right? I remember years ago when I used to identify as shame or as guilt. Chris is inherently bad. Chris is inherently shame, right? And this is why the differentiation, it's not just, The fascinating thing about differentiation is not just a matter of differentiation between self and other, but it's also between self and that which the self is experiencing. Right? If the experience is pain, the experience is shame, the experience is anger, the experience is guilt, regardless of what the experience is, right? Being able to just have that awareness of, oh, wow, okay, there is anger arising in me. I am not that anger, but there is anger arising in me. Why is there anger arising in me? And then being able to put the energy on the appropriate object. Right? That's the fascinating thing about this whole process and how it works. But I understand, because I've been there, why the path of avoidance and numbing is so fucking enticing, because it is. Pain is like a splinter. Emotional pain can be like a splinter that keeps rubbing up against your fucking jacket, and you just want to rip it out, right? You want to get rid of it. Toss it out there like a active grenade. You don't want that shit, right? Yeah, it's a wild thing, right? But the integration of that is wild. Because when you do integrate it rather than avoid it and numb it and run away from it, you understand a whole lot more about yourself, about what you do, why you do what you do, where it came from, what caused it. And then an entire experience of responsibility and accountability take place. Self-awareness further then develops, right? Again, I understand. I have been there. The avoidance of pain, the numbing of pain, the overconsumption of absolutely fucking anything, whether it be food, media, meds, whatever the fuck it is, right? It's all chemical, it's all substance, it all has a specific influence on the body, right? And there's a level, whether high or low, of distraction away from self, away from emotional experience that takes place, right? But the fascinating thing about this entire process is that when you overconsume, let me try that again. When you overconsume, I was trying to say consumption. When you overconsume as to numb, I would argue so that you're actually missing out on yourself. Right? Yeah, pain can be challenging, specifically in this case, emotional pain. Anxiety is not fun. Depression is not fun. Sadness can be, I mean, I would never argue that sadness is fun. Sadness is not fun, you know? It's very accessible, especially in this era, in this modern day, this day and age, to just, oh God, finally, you know? Whether that's a pill, whether that's, you know, media, whatever. And I'm not here to say that you should get anything the fuck out of your life entirely. I'm not. I'm not on that extreme all or nothing, black or white, this or that, good or bad, right or wrong game. I think I said everything in regards to black or white thinking there. I'm not on that. I am on balance. I'm on counterbalance. I'm on all of that. I'm on having both this and that as integrated, and therefore a healthy experience. But it's possible to overdo it. People overdo it all the time because they're trying to avoid, they're trying to numb. But when you do take that route, you tend to lose yourself. You tend to miss out on yourself. You tend to grow further away from yourself. And I would argue so that that is probably the most terrifying experience.